Podcast 3. This is the third podcast about the two Twigs, and I'm Dr. Natalie Senjov-Makohon, a scholar at the State Library of Victoria and a recipient of the 2016 Ukrainian Studies Foundation of Australia and State Library of Victoria Fellowship to Digitise Cultural Heritage. Before I continue, I'd like to share with you some important information regarding these podcasts. Firstly, I'd like to thank Hristia's Lotta, whose grandmother, Nina Lyubchenko, was one of the first Ukrainian Geelong immigrants. Hristia was good enough to introduce me to the Todorchuk sisters' music, which has been used during these podcasts. Rosemary and Charlene have generously given me their permission to use their version of the famous Ducks Fly Sun, in Ukrainian, Senu Kachke Letyat. Words by Mikhailo Tkach and music by Alexander Bilash. The Todorchuk sisters live in Canada and Hristia lives in Australia. The two twigs of Ukrainian culture and identity are forever joined, as Ukrainians share their oneness. This is another example of Ukrainian cooperation and sharing of Ukrainian heritage through the love of music. Therefore, I'd like to give my tribute to the first Ukrainian immigrants worldwide, who have passed their cultural heritage to the following generations throughout time. Now I would like to take you back to our Ukrainian Geelong immigrants. Thank you once again for joining me, and welcome to the third and last podcast of the 3 series to give a digital footprint to the first Ukrainian Geelong immigrants in Australia. In the last 2 podcasts, I introduced you to the two Twigs, whose lives were disrupted and they became displaced, only to find themselves in Geelong. In this podcast, I will talk about Geelong, Ukrainian contribution, and the Ukrainian Geelong community. And finally, I would like to give a huge tribute to the many Geelongskis, an endearing term used to refer to the Ukrainians who settled in Geelong. Geelong. When the Ukrainian immigrants arrived in Australia in 1948 and 1954, they relied on each other to find accommodation and jobs in the Woolen Mills, Palaco, International Harvester, Henderson Springs and Ford Australia, to name a few workplaces. Others went out to Corio, Anarchy, Batesford, Fearnsford, Lara, Mirrabul for agricultural work, fruit picking, and to the various farming districts within the surrounds of Geelong. Ukrainians arrived into this milieu to contribute to the local economy by working in the local agricultural and farming districts. Some were employed at Palaco to sew men's shirts, whilst others went into the catering industry. The clothing and footwear industries were localised, and our Ukrainians worked in these. The products were Australian-made. The men joined Ford Australia, while others participated in the building of the Great Ocean Road with the Country Roads Board, or CRB. A few were employed in the building industry and developed their own businesses. The Ukrainians filled the many houses of industry: oil, refining, steelworks, automobile manufacturing, farming machinery, chemicals, fertilisers, timber and plaster mills, cement, distilling, wheat and wool stores, clothing, glass, gas and salt works, meat works and abattoirs. Simultaneously, Ukrainians settled in the Shire of Corio, that is Bell Park, Hamlin Heights and Norlane, while others settled in Chilwell and Newtown. All of the Ukrainian immigrants in various capacities were active in the expansion and development of Geelong, establishing themselves in their personal lives and developing a cultural identity within the Geelong district. This became evident through cultural activities such as participating in the food and craft markets and showing their colourful embroidery at various events. They were proud of their Ukrainian traditions and wanted to ensure that others understood what they had brought to the area. This same attitude is shown today at the Paco Festival each year, where the people of Geelong celebrate cultural diversity. Their productivity on social, economic and personal levels enabled them to enrich Geelong society. 2 Twigs. Often in historical documents, the daily struggles of inhabitants are discarded. I would like to remember some of the struggles of individuals who preceded us to build what we take for granted. This I actually do in the book by the same name, 2 Twigs. In the book, I acknowledge some of the individuals and their families who remembered and wanted to share their stories of their daily struggles. Their individual strength shows their characteristics to persevere, preserve and build the modern Australia with all its multicultural qualities that we know today. Furthermore, the few preserved historical documents often don't fully represent the first Ukrainian immigrants' achievements, successes and contributions. These documents are not usually enough to really represent the triggers that altered life. Life was altered for many Ukrainians in Geelong, and this is documented through this digital project in the state of Victoria. The concept of the 2 Twigs resulted from a photo outside the Ukrainian Catholic Church. The meeting was reported in Church and Life, the Ukrainian Catholic newspaper, when it published an article about the Ukrainian who lived in Geelong. The article was called "The Pride of Ukrainians in Geelong." Our famous volunteers, the Ukrainian riflemen, or the Ukrainian Pride of Ukrainians in Geelong. The legionaries belonged to the only Ukrainian unit in the Austrian army. At the outbreak of the First World War, Galicia, which is the western part of Ukraine today, and Bosnia were part of the Austrian Habsburg Empire. Young men from both areas joined Ukrainsky Strelci. As mentioned in the first podcast, in August 1914, the Legion was organised in Galicia at the initiative of the Supreme Ukrainian Council. Men from Galicia and Bosnia were prepared to fight for a free Ukraine. They joined the Ukrainsky Strelci. However, some of these young men never returned to their families. On the other hand, Dmitry Kruk, Peter Skiba, Vasil Krylik, Peter Yalny and Vasil Kunka returned to their families and eventually met in Geelong. Skiba, Yalny and Kunka arrived with their families from Bosnia, Bachka, via Trieste, Italy in the mid-1950s. Krylik earlier and Dmitry Kruk was sponsored by his son-in-law Anton Baranovsky and his daughter Katerina. There is an old Ukrainian proverb, "Mountains don't meet, but people often do." These men were part of the 2 Twigs who met in Geelong and through the following generations sustained cultural heritage and identity in the Ukrainian Geelong community. At this stage, I would like to end the podcasting. However, I strongly recommend the reading of the 2 Twigs, as the story tells of the first Ukrainian Geelong immigrants, their organisational life, Romada, Plast, Ukrainian Scouting, and SUM, Ukrainian Youth Association, the Geelong Ukrainian Women's Association in Australia, Ukrainian schools, churches, and about various individual families who were part of the 2 Twigs. Geelongskis. The 2 Twigs is a tribute to the many Geelongskis, an endearing term used to refer to the Ukrainians who settled in Geelong. The Geelongskis consisted of 2 groups. The first group was expatriated out of Ukraine via Germany to become displaced persons. The second group immigrated out of Yugoslavia through the actions of Tito and Stalin in 1948 and also became displaced persons. These 2 groups or Twigs joined forces and knowledge to build a Ukrainian identity unique to them. The actions and activities in the community enabled individuals to survive in Australian society. Although Australian society officially embraced the new Australians, there were numerous issues relating to cultural identity, values, attitudes and behaviours which were not readily understood. The awareness of how to accomplish things in multiple ways was often obscured. Nevertheless, the new arrivals managed to do things in multiple ways and relied on each other. They assisted each other, and as each wave arrived, the earlier wave guided the following wave. They collaborated in this cultural context to ensure human capital added economic value to the community. Their ability, behaviour and unique characteristics gave them a sense of belonging to the Ukrainian community, although they were from two twigs. The personal narrative of these first Ukrainian Geelong immigrants has devised a storyline of many episodes in this immigration process to Geelong. Storytelling encourages cultural heritage preservation and becomes a valuable resource to reflect the diversity in a community. Often, cultural diversity makes us aware of our identity and raises our awareness of the contribution of previous generations for the betterment of community and society. In 2016, UNESCO, at its World Day for Audiovisual Heritage, It's Your Story, Don't Lose It, alerted us to the need to give acknowledgement to previous generations to ensure a sustainable development for the benefit of future generations. Therefore, the memory of two distinct twigs is the unique story of the Ukrainian immigration to Geelong, and a great tribute is laid for their coming with nothing, sustaining their community for 70 years and producing everything for future generations. There are numerous people who made this project possible. The Ukrainian Studies Foundation in Australia and the State Library of Victoria Fellowship, the first Ukrainian Geelong immigrants and their families. The music for the podcasting was made possible through Hresha Zlota, who introduced me to her friends Rosemary and Charlene Todoshchuk from Winnipeg, Canada. Their beautiful voices lace the podcasts, and the music is available through their website www.rosemarytodoshchuk.com. I would like to acknowledge the various resources in the compilation of the project, and all of these are mentioned in the book. Finally, I would like to thank Svetlana Yakovenko and Sova Books, who have published a textbook and a forthcoming e-book to further expand the story of the two twigs. In the book, Two Twigs, I take you on a journey beginning in 1751 from Zakarpattia in present-day Western Ukraine to the 1890s and 1910s Bosnia, Bachka and former Yugoslavia. Then we travel through Germany, Austria and Italy to Australia. Finally, we arrive in Australia to form a Ukrainian community and a structured organisational life that has been sustained for 70 years and hopefully will continue. This is the social history in digital and analogue forms to give tribute to those who made a huge contribution to the changing face of Australia. This is Dr. Natalie Senjov-Makohon thanking you for your attention and inviting you to purchase the Two Twigs from Sova Books. Please visit sovabooks.com.au. Thank you.